Kodiak stopped so fast his claws scraped concrete, and Marcus was 3 steps past him before he understood that his dog had found something, and the something was still breathing. The warehouse was supposed to be empty. It had been empty on every patrol log filed in the last 4 months. Marcus had been assigned this route 6 hours ago by his deputy chief, pulled off downtown without explanation, sent east for reasons nobody explained, and he had not yet questioned. He pushed through the side door behind his dog, and the smell hit him first. Copper and cold, and something alive that had been fighting to stay that way for a very long time. If this story moves something in you, subscribe and follow it all the way to the end. Drop your city in the comments. I want to see how far this one travels. Marcus Webb had been a patrol officer for 18 months, and in that time he had learned exactly 2 things about Kodiak that mattered above everything else the training manual said. The first was that when the dog's body locked from spine to tail with no warning and no visible cause, something was wrong, and the something was always real. The second was that arguing with Kodiak had never once produced a better outcome than following him. So when the dog stopped mid-stride on the eastern perimeter of the industrial district at 2:07 a.m. and turned his tan and gold body toward the second warehouse, with his nose working in short, controlled pulls, and his amber eyes going to that particular stillness that had nothing to do with posture and everything to do with decision, Marcus stopped too. He did not call it in yet. He watched his dog. Kodiak pulled left, not a suggestion, a direction. Marcus keyed his radio. Dispatch, Unit 7. I have a possible welfare check at the second warehouse, 400 block of Crane Industrial. Requesting backup when available. Dispatch came back flat and routine. Unit 7, logging your location. Estimated response, 20 minutes. Proceed with caution. 20 minutes. Marcus unclipped Kodiak's leash. Find it, boy. The dog went through the side entrance ahead of him, and Marcus followed, and the smell was the first thing. And the second thing was the sound. A breath, shallow and losing ground. The specific sound of a person whose body was still running the program of staying alive, on almost nothing left to run it on. He saw her, a woman, hanging from a structural crossbeam by her wrists, zip-tied and chain-locked to a hook, welded into the steel, 12 feet up. Her boots were 4 inches above the floor. Her tactical camouflage clothing was cut along the left side, the fabric dark and wet. Her dark brown hair hung forward across her face. She was not moving, but she was breathing, and the breathing was getting shorter. Marcus moved. Training did not ask permission. He pulled the rescue cutter from his field kit and went for the chain first, because the chain was what was keeping her suspended. And every second she stayed suspended was a second her circulation was failing. The lock was cheap. The chain was not. He cut through the loop in 11 seconds that felt like something much longer. She dropped. He caught her, and her weight surprised him, not because she was heavy, but because she was entirely limp, in the way bodies went when they had spent everything they had on staying conscious, and had finally run out. He lowered her to the floor and pressed 2 fingers to her neck. Pulse. Fast. Weak, but there. He stripped his jacket and put it over her. Hey, he kept his voice low and even. Stay with me. I'm a police officer. You're safe. Nothing. I need your name. Can you give me your name? Her eyes opened. Green. Sharp in a way that did not match how the rest of her looked. She looked at him, at the dark navy uniform and the badge, and then past him at Kodiak, who had taken position at the door without being told. 78 pounds of tan and black, standing guard with his back to them, and his nose reading the air outside. She was running a calculation. He could see it happening, even through the fog of whatever her body had been through. She was not looking at him the way rescued people looked at the people who found them. She was looking at him the way someone looked at a variable they had not yet classified. "Name," Marcus said again, quieter this time. "Regan Cole." Her voice was raw and damaged and careful all at once. "Lieutenant, Navy SEAL Intelligence." She stopped, breathed, continued. "Your patrol." "Yes." "Who put you on this route tonight?" Marcus looked at her. The question was wrong. It was the exact wrong question for someone who had just been cut down from a beam. It was the question of someone who had not stopped working. "Deputy Chief Aldrin. He reassigned me off downtown 6 hours ago." Something moved through her face that was not relief and was not fear. It was the expression of a person who has received a piece of information that confirms something they were hoping was not true. "He knows I'm alive," she said. "He's been watching this building. He sent you to find me." "Aldrin sent me because there's a routine welfare check protocol for the industrial." "There is no routine about this." Her hand came up and grabbed the front of his uniform shirt, with a grip that should not have been possible for a woman with what looked like a knife wound and hours of suspension damage. "Listen to me. I have been undercover inside a trafficking network for 6 months. My cover was blown 72 hours ago. They brought me here and hung me in this warehouse, and it was not to kill me quietly. It was to use me." Marcus held still. "Use you how?" "As a trigger. When I get found, whoever finds me calls it in. Response teams deploy. Attention goes east toward this building. While everyone is looking east, the transport moves west." She held his eyes. 14 people, scheduled for movement at 4 a.m. They are in holding right now, within 4 miles of here. And at 4 a.m., they go into licensed vehicles on a pre-cleared route, and they disappear. Her grip tightened. "Your deputy chief has been managing law enforcement response for this network for 6 years. He did not send you here to rescue me. He sent you here to be the response he could control." Marcus's radio crackled. "Unit 7, cancel the welfare check. Deputy Chief Aldrin reports the area was cleared by private security 30 minutes ago. False alarm. Return to downtown rotation." The two of them looked at the radio at the same time. Regan said nothing. She did not have to. The timing of the cancellation said everything it needed to say. Marcus reached down and turned the radio off. "Okay," he said. "Tell me everything. Fast." Regan exhaled. It was the exhale of someone who has been holding something in for 3 days, waiting for the right person to say those exact words. "The network runs through decommissioned military and industrial infrastructure. 9 facilities across 4 states. They use licensed security contractor vehicles, so the transport looks legitimate at checkpoints. The checkpoints have been pre-cleared by law enforcement contacts embedded in the operation." She shifted, tightening the jacket against the wound on her side. "Aldrin is the Eastern Corridor contact. He manages local law enforcement response. He has buried 4 separate investigations in 6 years. Complaints rerouted, evidence suppressed, officers reassigned." "He reassigned me to this route tonight." "He reassigned you because you are an unknown variable. You are 25 years old, and you have been on the force 18 months. And he does not have enough information on you yet to know whether you can be managed. He thought sending you to this building was safe because you would find me, you would call it in, and he would control what happened next." She looked at him steadily. "He did not account for your dog going off route." Marcus turned to Kodiak. The dog was still at the door, still reading the air, still holding position without being asked. His amber eyes came back to Marcus for exactly 1 second and then returned to the exterior. He went off route about 4 blocks back, Marcus said. I don't know why. He just pulled. I know why, Reagan said quietly. I've been in this building for 9 hours. He smelled me. Marcus checked her wound. The pressure bandage from his kit was holding, but it was the last one he had, and it was not going to be enough for 4 more hours. My handler, Daniel Croft, NCIS, has not heard from me in 72 hours. If he has been tracking my last known signal, he is moving toward this location, but I do not know how close he is. She looked at his personal cell in his jacket pocket. Not your department radio, your personal phone. Call him. I don't have his number. I do. She gave it from memory, 7 digits without hesitation, and Marcus dialed. It rang twice. The voice that answered was alert in the specific way of someone who had not been sleeping. Who is this, and how did you get this number? Officer Marcus Webb, Callaway PD. I have your agent. She is alive. She has a knife wound, and she has been suspended from a beam for approximately 9 hours, and she needs medical attention in less than 2 hours. But she says the transport moves at 4 a.m., and there are 14 victims in holding, and the Eastern Corridor contact is my deputy chief, who just tried to pull me off this location by radio. He paused. I turned my radio off. I need to know if I can trust you. Silence. 3 seconds of it, which was the kind of silence that was not empty, but full of something being decided. Don't move, Croft said. Don't call anyone in your department. Don't touch anything that goes through your precinct communications. I am 42 minutes out. A pause. How is she? Marcus looked at Reagan. Alive and working. Croft's exhale came through the phone. That's her, all right. Another pause. The dog. Is the canine with you? At the door. Keep him there. He's your early warning system. The line went quiet for 1 second. Webb, you turned off your radio. Yes? You understand what that means for your career if this goes sideways? Marcus looked at Reagan, at the wound on her side and the chain marks on her wrists, and the green eyes that had been running calculations since the moment they opened and had not stopped. He looked at the radio on his belt and thought about the call that had come through 30 seconds after Aldrin found out he was in the building. He thought about the specific speed of that response and what it meant about who was watching and why. I understand what it means if I turn it back on, he said. Croft said, 42 minutes. Keep her stable. Marcus ended the call. He looked at Reagan. She was watching him with the same assessment she had brought to everything since she opened her eyes, reading him, processing him, updating her calculation. You turned off the radio before you called Croft, she said. Seemed like the right order. It was. She shifted, and the effort of it pulled at the wound, and she controlled the reaction completely, which was either training or stubbornness, or both. Most people would have called it in and let the chain of command sort it out. The chain of command is why you've been hanging from a beam for 9 hours. She looked at him for a long moment. Something in her expression changed, not dramatically, just slightly. The specific adjustment of a calculation that has been running on one set of assumptions and has just received data that requires a new model. Then Kodiak left the door. Not quickly, deliberately. He walked to the center of the warehouse floor and stood facing the side entrance, with his hackles rising in the slow progression that meant what it always meant. And Marcus was on his feet before the dog's lip moved. Someone's outside, Marcus said. Regan was already moving, getting to one knee, her hand finding the floor for balance. How close? Kodiak would be louder if they were coming in. This is detection at distance. Marcus moved to the wall beside the door. Single vehicle, moving slow. A sound. An engine. idling, not stopping, rolling past the building at a speed that was not a patrol speed and not a transit speed. The speed of something checking a location without committing to it. The engine sound faded east and did not return. Kodiak's hackles settled by half, not all the way. Marcus looked at the floor near the entrance. In the thin light from the gaps in the ceiling, a mark he had not seen when they entered. A tire track in the concrete dust. Fresh. The vehicle had pulled within 10 feet of the side door, stopped for less than 30 seconds, and reversed. They came to confirm, Regan said from behind him. She had gotten to her feet and was standing with his jacket held against her side and her jaw tight with the effort of standing. Not to engage, to verify the building had been entered. Which means they know we are here. Which means Aldrin knows his response team did not arrive first. Her voice was completely level. Which means he is making a new plan right now, and the new plan is going to move faster than 42 minutes. Kodiak came to Marcus's side and pressed against his leg and looked up at him with those amber eyes, not waiting for a command, offering something. The steady, warm, entirely certain presence of an animal that had already decided what the next move was and was standing ready to make it. "We don't wait," Marcus said. "No," Regan agreed. "We don't." Regan did not sit back down. Marcus could see what standing was costing her, and she was paying it anyway, which told him something about the kind of person he was dealing with, that the badge and the tactical gear had already suggested. "We have 40 minutes, she said. "Less now. Tell me what you know about the Eastern District, every facility on this block." Marcus pulled the patrol map from his jacket, not the department-issued digital one that logged every query through the precinct server. The paper backup he carried because his training officer on his first week had told him paper did not ping. He spread it on the floor between them. 3 decommissioned processing buildings. 2 warehouses, this one and the one at the north end of Crane. A rail yard that hasn't moved freight in 7 years. 2 holding facilities that are technically licensed as private security storage. The holding facilities. Regan's finger came down on the map without hesitation. Who holds the license? Eastern Shield Security Services. They have a legitimate contract with the city for equipment storage. Eastern Shield is a shell. Her voice was flat and certain, and carried the particular authority of someone who had spent 6 months inside something and knew exactly what its surfaces looked like from the other side. The license is real. The company is paper. It exists to put law enforcement familiar paperwork on facilities that would otherwise require inspection warrants. She looked at him. Who signed off on the city contract? Marcus already knew the answer before he checked the mental file he kept out of habit. The habit of a man who read every internal memo that crossed the department's shared drive, because he was new and did not yet know which information mattered. Deputy Chief Aldrin co-signed the facilities approval 18 months ago. Regan did not look surprised. She looked like someone checking a box they had already marked correct. He has been building this for a long time. The contract legitimizes the holding locations. The pre-clearance on the transport route means the vehicles pass 3 checkpoints without secondary inspection. The only failure point in the whole system is an unexpected response. She looked at Kodiak. And an unexpected dog. Kodiak's ears moved at the word dog. His tail did not. Marcus's personal phone buzzed. Not a call. A text from a number he did not recognize. 3 words. Check your file. He looked at Regan. She was already reading over his shoulder. "Sasha Oren," she said. "You know her." "I know of her. Narcotics detective, 4 years. She built a case against Aldrin 14 months ago, suppressed before it reached IA." Regan's jaw tightened. "My debrief flagged her name as a potential asset. Someone in the network was monitoring her communications for 6 months, which means she got closer than Aldrin wanted." She nodded at the phone. She found you, or she found your badge number on a system query and traced it. Marcus opened the department's internal records app on his personal phone, the one that mirrored the precinct system but cached locally and did not log remote access back to the server in real time. He searched his own badge number. The file loaded, and what he found in it stopped his breathing for exactly 2 seconds. A welfare flag, logged 41 minutes ago while he was already inside this warehouse. The flag read, Unit 7, Erratic Behavior Reported. Possible mental health concern. Recommend immediate supervisor contact before end of shift. Aldrin had filed a welfare flag on him before his own response team arrived, before he even knew whether Marcus had found Reagan yet. He had planted the institutional story preemptively, which meant he had anticipated the possibility that Marcus might not cooperate, which meant he had been watching Marcus long enough to know that Marcus might be a problem. Reagan read it. Her voice came out very quiet. He does not wait to see what happens. He builds the narrative first, and then the narrative shapes how everything else gets interpreted. She looked at Marcus. If you call this in right now, you are an officer with an active wellness flag, reporting a trafficking network run by his own deputy chief. The first response will be a supervisor evaluation, not a tactical team. I know. He has done this before. The 4 investigations he buried, at least 2 of them, ended with the filing officer being referred for a mental health review. She met his eyes. He is very good at this. Marcus looked at the welfare flag, at his own name on it, at the timestamp that was 41 minutes ago, which was before he had said a single word to anyone except Croft, which meant Aldrin had logged it based on the tire track check confirming the building was entered, which meant the entire response structure had been activated the moment Kodiak pulled off the patrol route. He texted back to Sasha Oren's number. I see it. Who are you? The response came in 8 seconds. Narcotics. I've been building a parallel case on Aldrin for 4 months. I have financial records linking Eastern Shield to a holding account that traces to 6 other shell entities across 3 states. I submitted it to IA twice, buried both times. I am 2 blocks from your location right now. I have been sitting here for 90 minutes waiting for something to break. Marcus showed Regan the text. She read it. Then she said, How do you know she's not one of his? It was the right question. It was the question of someone who had been inside a network where every person with institutional authority was a potential layer of the same corruption. Marcus thought about it for 3 full seconds. Then he typed, If you're with Aldrin, you already know where I am, and you don't need this conversation. If you're not, tell me something about the Eastern Shield contract that isn't in the public filing. 12 seconds. The shell company's registered agent is a law firm on the 4th floor of the Callaway Municipal Building. The firm's senior partner has a brother-in-law who sits on the city's facilities approval board. That relationship is not in any filing because it was specifically structured to not appear in any filing. I found it by pulling property records for 3 weeks. Regan was already nodding before Marcus finished reading. That is not information Aldrin's people would share. That is information that threatens the second layer. She straightened. There is a second layer. Someone who processed the paperwork and is not Aldrin. She knows about the second layer. Then she's real. Regan gestured toward the phone. Tell her what we need. Marcus typed. We have 40 minutes before a transport moves 14 victims. We need a way to stop the transport without it going through Callaway PD command. Can you reach state police directly, not through city dispatch? The response. Yes, I have a contact. What do you need? Regan dictated and Marcus typed. The request was specific, the kind of specific that came from 6 months inside an operation, and a brain that had been running contingencies for 72 hours in the dark. Report an armed carjacking in progress on the 9 North Connector. That is the transport route. The network's pre-clearance only functions if there is no independent state police presence. If state police are redirected to 9 North from their own dispatch, the transport vehicles have no clear corridor. They will hold in place and wait for the situation to resolve. And while they hold, Croft arrives. 30-second pause. Then, sending it now. I need you to know something else. Aldrin just logged a request for a unit to perform a welfare check on you at your last known location. He told dispatch you sounded disoriented on the radio and went silent. He framed it as a concern call. Marcus looked up from the phone. He is sending someone to this building, he said. Regan moved to the door immediately, which cost her something, and she paid it without making a sound. How far out? Dispatch assigned it 3 minutes ago. Closest unit is approximately 8 minutes from this location. She looked at Marcus. We need to be somewhere he does not control when that unit arrives.
If we move you, the wound.
The wound is stable for another 2 hours if I don't do anything that opens it further. She looked at him with a directness that left no room for the kind of argument that was based on what she should do rather than what she was going to do. I have been in worse condition, in worse situations, and I have still been useful. Do not manage me. Tell me where we are going. Kodiak was already at the door. Marcus said, There is a secondary building half a mile east. Decommissioned rail maintenance. It is not on Aldrin's patrol assignment for tonight, which means it is either empty or it is exactly where we need to be. Rail maintenance, Regan repeated. She was running it against something in her memory. My last surveillance before the cover broke placed 2 of the transport vehicles in the eastern rail corridor. I could not confirm the specific building. She looked at Kodiak. Can he find it? Give me something with a scent from the transport team. Regan reached into the cut lining of her tactical vest and pulled out a piece of fabric. Dark, stiff. The kind of fabric that had been in contact with multiple people over multiple days in a closed space. One of them had this. He used it to blindfold me during transport. He took it back, but I found a piece he missed. She held it toward Kodiak. The dog moved to it and drew a breath so long and deliberate, it looked like he was reading something written in the air. His head came up. His body oriented east, the same direction it had oriented in the parking lot when he first picked up Regan's scent from 4 blocks away. He has it, Marcus said. Regan pulled herself to her feet with one hand against the wall. Then let's move. They went out the side entrance, and Regan held his jacket against her side with one arm and moved faster than Marcus expected, and Kodiak moved ahead of them both, low and focused, nose working the cold air in short, deliberate pulls. They were 60 meters from the warehouse when Marcus's personal phone rang. He answered without breaking stride. Croft's voice came through clipped and direct. Change of plan. Aldrin just pulled 2 units off the downtown rotation and sent them to the industrial district. He told dispatch there is a possible break-in at the warehouse complex. I am 24 minutes out. What is your position? Moving east toward the rail corridor. Kodiak has a scent trail. A pause. He's going to have eyes on that building before I arrive. You have maybe 15 minutes before his people are inside, and anyone they find gets logged under his version of events. Another pause. Webb. The welfare flag he filed on you. If his units find you with a federal agent and no radio contact and a turned-off department device, the story he has already written fits everything they are going to see. Marcus looked at Regan moving beside him through the dark, at Kodiak ahead of them, at the phone in his hand. Then we need to be somewhere that tells a different story before they find us, he said. Croft said, Find those victims. Marcus pocketed the phone. Kodiak stopped ahead of them, 30 meters out from the rail maintenance building. body locked, ears pinned forward. The full-body stillness that Marcus had seen in the warehouse, and knew by now to read without needing the dog to explain it. Not a scent detection, a presence detection. Someone was inside. Reagan stopped beside him and read the dog without being told what she was reading. "How many?" she said quietly. Marcus watched Kodiak's body. The dog's nose worked in short, controlled pulls, assessing volume, counting variations in the air, the way he had been trained to count them. His tail did not move. "More than 2, Marcus said. "Probably more than 4. Reagan looked at the building. "They moved the schedule up," she said. Her voice was completely even. "They are already loading." Kodiak looked back at Marcus, amber eyes in the dark. The look that was not a question. The look that was a statement. "I am ready. I have been ready. Tell me it is time." Marcus checked his sidearm. He looked at Reagan, who had straightened against the wound and was watching the building with the focused attention of a woman who had been working toward this moment for 6 months and was not going to stop now because she was injured and under-resourced and operating without sleep for 3 days. "Croft is 24 minutes out," he said. "I know," she said. "We are 1 officer, 1 wounded agent, and 1 dog." "I know that too." She looked at him. "But we are the only ones standing between those people and a transport that leaves in 40 minutes. And your dog has a scent trail that leads directly to the door." She paused. "What do you want to do?" Marcus looked at Kodiak. The dog did not blink. He thought about the welfare flag with his name on it, about the radio sitting turned off on his belt, about a deputy chief who had been running this network for 6 years and had built every layer of it on the assumption that the people around him would look at the institution and trust that it worked. He thought about Kodiak going off route in the dark and finding a woman hanging from a beam who had been left there as a distraction, and about the fact that the entire plan had been built around the assumption that nobody with a dog would go 4 blocks east on a patrol route that had no reason to go east. Nobody had accounted for the dog. "We go in," Marcus said. Regan nodded once. "Stay left. Let the dog lead." Kodiak was already moving. Kodiak went through the side door first, and Marcus followed 2 steps behind with his sidearm drawn, and Reagan on his left with her hand pressed against the wound and her eyes already moving the way trained eyes moved in unfamiliar spaces, reading angles and distances and the specific geometry of danger before the body had time to be afraid of it. The building was not empty. Marcus could hear them before his eyes adjusted. Voices, low and operational. The clipped communication of people working on a timeline. Movement. The sound of something heavy being shifted. And underneath all of it, quieter, the specific absence of noise that was not silence, but suppression. People who had been told to be quiet and were trying very hard to be. Kodiak stopped at the corner of the interior wall and looked back at Marcus. Not an alert. A check. He was telling Marcus what he had already told him outside and was making sure Marcus understood what came next. "How many voices?" Reagan said. Her voice was barely a breath. Marcus held up 4 fingers. She held up 2 more. 6. She had been in the building before in her intelligence work, and she was counting against something she already knew. He nodded. Kodiak moved left along the wall, and Marcus tracked him, and Reagan stayed 2 steps back because she was injured, and they both knew it, and she was not going to be the reason something went wrong. The first voice came from behind a partition wall, male, aggravated, speaking into a phone. "The route is backed up. State police on 9 North. I don't know how long." A pause. "No, the team is ready. Vehicles are warm. We wait for clearance." Sasha's call had worked. The transport was stalled. Marcus exhaled through his nose and felt Regan's hand touch his shoulder briefly, just once. The touch of someone confirming they had heard the same thing and understood what it meant. They had bought time. Not much, but time. Kodiak stopped again. His body went into the full lock posture, the one Marcus had learned to read as the difference between scent detection and presence detection, between something the dog had found and something the dog was telling him was about to find them. Someone was moving toward their position from the right. Marcus pressed flat against the wall and pulled Regan with him, and they held still, and the footsteps came closer, and passed within 4 feet of them, and continued, and neither of them breathed until the footsteps faded. Regan's mouth came close to his ear. "The holding room is 20 meters ahead. I know the layout from the facility schematics in my file. There will be a secondary guard on the door." One stationed, others mobile. Marcus looked at Kodiak. The dog's ears were tracking the interior with the rotating precision of an animal that was processing multiple audio sources simultaneously and prioritizing them in real time. His amber eyes came back to Marcus and held. "I need a distraction on the east side," Marcus said very quietly. "Something that pulls the mobile guards away from the holding room for 90 seconds. Regan reached into the torn lining of her vest and pulled out the only thing she had left. A small handheld radio, cracked along the casing but intact. One of the network's internal units she had kept hidden through the entire 72 hours because she had not known when it would matter, but had known it would. She held it up. Marcus looked at it. "If you transmit on their frequency, they triangulate your position." "Yes," she said. "In about 4 minutes. We need to be somewhere else in 3. "What do you say?" "I say the warehouse on Crane has been compromised, and there is a federal response team inbound." She looked at him steadily. "That is the one thing that will pull every mobile guard away from this room. They will move to confirm, and they will try to reach Aldrin. And while they are doing both of those things, we have a window." Marcus thought about it for 2 seconds. "Do it." She keyed the radio and spoke in the flat, controlled tone of someone who had spent 6 months sounding exactly like every other voice in the network. "Crane warehouse is hot. Federal response incoming. All units redirect." She clicked it off. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then the interior exploded with movement. Voices, footsteps converging and then diverging. The specific controlled chaos of an operation responding to a threat it was not prepared for. 2 sets of footsteps went east at speed. A third followed. A fourth hesitated and then followed the others. One set of footsteps did not move, the door guard. Marcus looked at Kodiak. He gave the command with his hand, low and flat, the apprehension signal he had practiced with this dog 400 times in the last 14 months. And had used in the field exactly twice before tonight. Kodiak's whole body changed, all the patient watchfulness condensing into a single, focused point. He went around the corner before Marcus finished the gesture. There was a sound, brief, professional. The sound of 78 pounds of trained canine making contact with a decision rather than a request. Then, silence. Marcus came around the corner. The guard was on the floor, with Kodiak holding his forearm and looking at Marcus with the amber eyes that said, "Your move." Marcus had the cuffs on the man in 11 seconds. He took the guard's radio and his phone and handed both to Regan. She was already reading the radio frequency. "They are calling back for confirmation on the Crane warehouse report. They have 45 seconds before they realize it was a false call." "How many people in the holding room?" 14 minimum. My last count was 14. She found the door latch and looked at Marcus. "They are going to be frightened. They have been held for an extended period, and every time a door has opened, it has not been good. Your dog is going to read as a threat." Marcus crouched beside Kodiak. He took the dog's face in both hands, the way he did when he needed Kodiak's full attention on him rather than on the room. "Easy," he said quietly. "These are good people. We are here for them." He knew the dog could not understand every word. He also knew that Kodiak understood more than every word. He understood tone and intent and the specific quality of calm that a handler projected when the situation required gentleness over force. The dog's body shifted, the apprehension tension releasing from his shoulders, his tail beginning a slow, careful movement. Reagan opened the door. The room held 14 people in the specific stillness of people who had learned that stillness was the safest response to an opening door. Eyes wide, bodies pressed back. Children in the group, 3 of them, pressed behind the adults with the instinctive understanding that their job was to be invisible. "Nobody is going to hurt you," Marcus said. He stepped forward slowly, and Kodiak moved with him at a heel so deliberate it was almost slow motion. The dog reading the room and calibrating to it in real time. "My name is Marcus Webb. I am a police officer. There is federal support incoming. You are going to be okay." Nothing moved for 3 seconds. Then a woman in the middle of the group, early 30s, who had been holding herself in a posture of controlled containment that Marcus recognized as the posture of someone who had decided to be the composed one for everyone else's sake, said, "Are you real?" "Yes, ma'am." Her composure cracked across the middle like something that had been holding weight for too long and had finally been given permission to stop. She put both hands over her mouth. Around her, the room began to breathe again. Kodiak walked to the nearest child, a boy of about 7 who was watching the dog with the specific mix of fear and fascination that children brought to large animals in unexpected situations. And he lowered his head until his nose was level with the boy's face, and waited. The boy looked at Marcus. Marcus nodded. The boy reached out and put his hand on Kodiak's head, and the dog's tail began to move in the slow, steady sweep that it made when Kodiak had decided everything was going to be okay. The boy started crying, not from fear. Reagan's hand found Marcus's arm. "We have less than 90 seconds before those mobile guards confirm the Crane warehouse call was false and come back." Marcus turned to the room. "I need everyone to move, now, single file. Stay behind me and stay quiet. My dog is going to lead you out, and I need you to trust him." He looked at the woman who had spoken. "Can you help me keep everyone together?" She dropped her hands from her face. She straightened. "Yes," she said. The word came out like something she had been waiting for a chance to say. They moved. Kodiak took the front, moving with the careful pace of a dog that had assessed the group behind him and understood instinctively that he was responsible for something fragile. Marcus took the rear. Reagan moved alongside the line, with her hand pressed to her side and her eyes scanning the interior, reading the building for the audio cues that told her where the returning guards were. They were 20 meters from the exterior door when Reagan said, very quietly, "East side, 2 of them, coming back." Marcus counted the group, 14 people, 3 children, a woman with a broken wrist who was moving with controlled determination through obvious pain, a teenage boy with his arm around a smaller girl who was not his sister, but who had been in his protection for however long they had been held, and he was not letting go of her now. They were not going to make the exterior before the guards turned the corner. Reagan said, "I need you to keep moving. Get them to the door." Marcus looked at her. "You are not." "I am a Navy SEAL intelligence officer, and I have been building toward this moment for 6 months." Her voice was completely even. "I know this building, and I know how these people communicate, and I have their internal radio. I can buy you the 90 seconds you need." She met his eyes. "Get them to the door and keep them there until Croft arrives." Reagan. "Webb." She said his name once. Steady and final, and carrying the specific weight of a decision that had already been made. Go. He held her gaze for exactly 2 seconds. Then he looked at Kodiak. The dog was watching him from the front of the group, amber eyes, patient and certain, waiting for the decision that Marcus needed to make, and the dog had already made. Go, Reagan said again. Marcus turned and moved. The group reached the exterior door, and he got it open and pushed them through one at a time, and Kodiak held the front with his tail moving slowly, keeping the frightened people focused on him rather than on their fear. The cold air hit them, and several people gasped, and one woman started to cry, and the boy with his arm around the smaller girl got them both through the door and turned back to look at Marcus with the expression of someone who needed to confirm once more that this was real. Keep moving east, Marcus said. Stay together. There is federal support incoming. From inside the building, he heard Reagan's voice. She had keyed the internal radio again. She was speaking in the flat, operational tone of the network, directing the 2 returning guards toward the north loading bay with a fabricated equipment alert, her voice indistinguishable from the communications they had been following for however many months they had been part of this operation. It worked for 60 seconds. Then one of them said, "Wait, that's not Martinez's voice." Marcus heard footsteps accelerate. He heard Regan move, the specific sound of someone who had been injured and was moving fast anyway because fast was the only available option. He heard the guards shout. He heard a struggle. Kodiak was at his leg, pressing hard, amber eyes looking up at him with the absolute directness of an animal delivering a message it could not make any clearer. He looked at the 14 people 20 meters behind him in the dark. He looked at the building. He looked at the dog. Then headlights cut across the eastern perimeter from 2 directions simultaneously, and he heard the sound of vehicles moving with a specific speed of people who had been 42 minutes out and had found a reason to push it to 38. And Daniel Croft's voice came through the night with the clear authority of a federal agent who had arrived exactly when his agent needed him, and not 1 minute before. Marcus went back through the door. Kodiak went first. Marcus went back through the door, and Kodiak went ahead of him, and the interior of the building had changed in the 90 seconds he had been outside, because Croft's arrival had compressed everything that was going to happen into a single accelerating moment. He found Reagan on one knee, with her back against the interior wall, and one hand pressed hard against her side, and the other holding the cracked radio like a weapon she had already decided to use if it came to that. One of the guards was on the floor with zip ties on his wrists that had not been there before. The second was backed against the opposite wall, with Kodiak between them and the specific expression of a man who has just been introduced to 78 pounds of professional certainty and has decided that stillness is his best option. "You came back," Reagan said. "You knew I would." "I did not know that." She looked at him with something that was too honest to be anything other than genuine. "I hoped." Marcus crossed to her and checked the pressure bandage. It had held. Barely. The wound did not open further, but it had not closed either, and the color in her face was the color of someone running on discipline and adrenaline, and the specific determination of a person who had too many things left to finish to stop now. He got her upright, with his arm under hers, and she let him do it, which told him how much the last 4 minutes had cost her. Croft came through the north entrance with 2 state police officers and Detective Sasha Oren on his left, who was moving with the forward momentum of someone who had been sitting in a car 2 blocks away for 90 minutes, preparing for exactly this moment. Croft was 45 years old and moved like someone who had been in difficult rooms before and had long ago stopped finding them surprising. He saw Reagan, and his face did one thing and then returned to professional, and he crossed to her in 8 steps. "Cole." "Croft." Her voice was steady. "The transport is stalled on 9 North. We have 14 victims outside, east perimeter. 4 transport crew members, 2 in this building, 2 outside who surrendered to state police. 6 mobile guards, 4 of whom responded to the crane warehouse redirect and should be containable. She paused to breathe. Aldrin sent 2 units from the department to this location. They should arrive in approximately 6 minutes.
Croft looked at Marcus. The body cam. On the whole time, Marcus said, from the first warehouse to here. Croft's expression changed by 1 degree. Everything. Everything. Sasha Oren moved up beside them, and she was looking at Marcus with the specific expression of someone who has been fighting alone for 14 months and has just watched someone else make the decision she had not been able to make. And she said, "The welfare flag he put on you. I have screen captures, time-stamped. I was monitoring the internal system when it went in." Marcus looked at her. "You were watching my badge number?" "I was watching everyone Aldrin touched in the last 6 months. You got reassigned to this route tonight, and I have been on Aldrin for 4 months, and the reassignment pattern matched 3 previous cases where he moved officers to positions that served his response management." She said it matter-of-factly, the way people stated things they had been building toward for a long time. "I almost called you before you went on shift. I did not know if I could trust you." "How do you know now?" She looked at Reagan, at the building around them, at Kodiak standing with the second guard against the wall with the patient certainty of a dog who had already decided how this ended and was waiting for the paperwork to catch up. "Because if you were Aldrin's, you would have used the radio." Croft said, "We have 5 minutes before his units arrive. I need the body cam footage transmitted to the federal server before anyone in that department touches this scene." He looked at Marcus. "Do you know how to do that?" "Yes." Marcus pulled out his personal phone, opened the camera app's cloud backup, and did it in 38 seconds. Because he had set it up 18 months ago when he started the job, and had tested it once a month since then. Because his training officer had told him that evidence only exists if it goes somewhere it cannot be touched. And he had believed her. The footage transmitted. 2 minutes and 4 seconds of everything from the warehouse to the rail building, including the welfare flag logged on his own badge, including Aldrin's radio call canceling the welfare check response, including Regan's account of the network delivered in her own voice with her own badge in the frame. Croft checked his phone, confirmed receipt. He looked at Sasha Oren. "Your financial records, the Eastern Shield shell account." She had them on her tablet. 4 months of pulled records and property documents, and the specific chain of incorporations that connected a legitimate city contract to a trafficking network through the specific mechanism of a registered agent who shared an address with a law firm whose senior partner had a brother-in-law on the facility's approval board. She handed the tablet to Croft without ceremony. "I have it going back 3 years." Croft looked at the records for 45 seconds. The 45 seconds had the quality of a man confirming something he had suspected was true and finding it worse than he had suspected. "The registered agent," he said. "The law firm." "4th floor of the municipal building," Sasha said. "The senior partner's name is Gerald Fitch. He has been on Aldrin's personal contacts list for 11 years. I found it in a financial disclosure that was filed incorrectly in 2019 and never corrected." Regan said, "That is the second layer." Everyone looked at her. "I told Webb there was a second layer inside the department." She met Croft's eyes. "Someone processed the paperwork. Someone gave the shell company's contract legitimate institutional standing. Fitch is not a logistics contact. He is the structural protection. He is the reason every investigation into the Eastern Corridor facilities produced paperwork that was unimpeachable, because the paperwork was produced by someone who knew exactly how to make it that way." Croft said, "Is Fitch in your debrief?" "By function, not by name. I did not have his name. I knew there was a legal mechanism inside the city structure that was protecting the facility contracts, but I could not identify the specific individual before my cover broke." She looked at Sasha.
You found him in a misfiled disclosure. Sasha looked at her. 4 months of property records. How many people told you to stop? 3. Reagan held her gaze for a moment. Thank you, she said. It was not a performative thing. It was the specific gratitude of someone who understood exactly what it had cost to keep going when everyone with institutional authority said, stop. The major twist arrived at exactly the wrong moment, which was the only moment it could have arrived. Aldrin walked through the north entrance, not in a patrol vehicle, not with backup. He had come alone, and he had come through the entrance that his own 2 responding units would not use, and he stood inside the building and looked at the assembled group and made the calculation that was visible on his face in the 4 seconds before he locked it down. 2 state police officers, a federal agent, a detective he had suppressed twice, a 25-year-old patrol officer he had assigned to a route that was supposed to keep him peripheral, a German shepherd, and the federal agent he had left in a warehouse to be found and managed, and who was standing upright and looking at him with the composed attention of someone who had been waiting for exactly this. He said, "Marcus, stand down. You're in the middle of a federal operation you were not briefed on. Everything you have done tonight can be explained as a good faith response to a situation that was above your clearance level. You do not have to be part of what happens next." His voice was the voice he had used for 26 years. Authoritative, reasonable, the voice of institutional certainty, the voice that had managed 4 investigations and a dozen officers and a network that had been running for 6 years on the foundation of that voice, making difficult things seem uncomplicated. Marcus looked at him. He thought about the welfare flag with his name on it, logged before Aldrin knew whether his own response team had arrived. He thought about the radio call that came through 30 seconds after the warehouse was confirmed entered. He thought about the specific speed of all of it, the pre-built story deployed before the facts had finished happening. The 26-year machine of a man who had learned to stay ahead of consequences by building the narrative before the evidence arrived. He looked at Kodiak. Kodiak was looking at Aldrin, not with aggression, with the complete stillness of an animal that had made his assessment and communicated it, and was waiting for his handler to catch up. "My body cam has been on since I entered the first warehouse," Marcus said. "The footage has been transmitted to the federal server. It includes your radio call canceling my welfare check response. It includes the welfare flag you logged on my badge before your response team arrived. It includes everything Agent Cole told me in the warehouse about how this network operates and who manages it." He paused. "There is no version of what happens next where the narrative you built works. The evidence is already somewhere, you cannot reach it." Aldrin's face did something. Not a crack, a shift. The specific adjustment of a man who has run 26 years of calculations and has arrived at the first one that does not produce an acceptable outcome. He said, "You're making a mistake." "You made it for me," Marcus said, "when you sent me east tonight." Croft stepped forward. He did not need to say anything official because the 2 state police officers were already moving, and Aldrin looked at them with the expression of a man watching something he had built for a very long time come apart in a way that was complete and irreversible. He did not resist. 26 years of institutional authority had taught him the specific moment when resistance became evidence, and he had enough left to recognize it. Kodiak watched him go. His amber eyes tracked Aldrin through the north entrance until the man was gone. Then his tail moved once, slow and deliberate, and he turned back to Marcus. Reagan exhaled. It was the exhale she had been holding for 3 days and 9 hours and approximately 47 minutes of an operation that had required her to stay functional on nothing but training and the particular stubbornness of a person who had decided the mission mattered more than the cost. "The 2 units he sent," she said. "His people." "Croft has them," Sasha said. She was already on her phone. "State police intercepted them 2 blocks out when the federal warrant cleared." She looked at Marcus. "You turned off your radio and built a case that took down a 6-year network and a deputy chief in one night." "Kodiak went off route," Marcus said. "I followed." Sasha looked at the dog. Kodiak looked back at her with the patient, amber-eyed attention he brought to everyone he had decided was worth watching over. His tail moved again. "I have been doing this for 4 years," Sasha said, and her voice had something in it that had not been there before. Not the controlled anger of someone who had been suppressed and was waiting for the walls to come down, but something older and quieter that had been underneath the anger the whole time. "I have filed evidence and had it buried, and built the case again and watched it get buried again, and I have kept coming back because I could not stop knowing what was happening to people in those buildings." She looked at the north entrance, where Aldrin had been taken through. "Tonight is the first time it has ended correctly." Marcus did not know what to say to that, so he said nothing, which was the right choice. Outside, through the building's exterior wall, he could hear voices. The 14 people responding to the state police and medical support that Croft's team had brought. The sound of children being spoken to in the careful tone of people trained to help frightened children. Believe that safe was real. The woman who had said, "Are you real?" and then straightened and held everyone together for the last 20 minutes, was talking to a paramedic with the focused urgency of someone reporting the medical status of the people she had been responsible for, because she had appointed herself responsible for them, and had not stopped. Reagan heard it too. She was listening with her eyes closed, not from exhaustion, but from the specific attention of someone letting something reach them that they had been holding at a distance for 3 days. "They are going to be okay," Marcus said. "Most of them," she said. She opened her eyes. "Some of them are going to have a very long road." "Yes." She looked at him with the assessment she had brought to everything since she opened her eyes in the warehouse. The green-eyed intelligence analyst's look that read people the way she read operations, for pattern and intent and the specific quality of reliability. "You turned off the radio," she said. "You said that already. I'm saying it again because it matters." She paused. "Every person in those buildings is breathing because you made a decision that had no institutional support and no guarantee of outcome and no safety net if it went wrong." She paused again. "Why?" Marcus thought about Kodiak going off route in the dark, about the specific quality of following a dog into a building that was supposed to be empty on a patrol route that had no reason to go east. About the moment he read the welfare flag on his own badge and understood that the institution he had spent 18 months trusting had been used by someone inside it as a tool for exactly the opposite of what it was supposed to do. He thought about his training officer on his first week, telling him that paper did not ping. The specific small wisdom of someone who had learned which things mattered when nothing else worked. "Because Kodiak went through the door first," he said, "and he has never been wrong." Reagan looked at the dog. Kodiak was lying at Marcus's feet, with his chin on his paws and his amber eyes open, monitoring the room with the patient watchfulness he brought to every room he had ever been in. His tail moved once at the attention. "Noted," Reagan said quietly. It was not a small thing. Croft came back inside and looked at both of them with the expression of a federal agent who had been doing this work long enough to recognize when a night had produced something that was going to matter beyond the case it was built in. He said, "The 14 are being processed now. Fitch's firm is being served a federal warrant in approximately 20 minutes. Aldrin is in state police custody and will be transferred to federal holding by morning." He looked at Reagan. "You need to go to the hospital." "I know." That was not a suggestion. I know that too. She pushed off from the wall and stood fully upright, and the effort of it was in her face for exactly 1 second before she put it somewhere else. The debrief can wait 12 hours. It cannot wait 12 hours. There are 4 other facilities in the Eastern Corridor that are not in tonight's operation. The network's contingency protocol activates when a transport is intercepted. They have already started moving.
She looked at Croft directly. I can give you the debrief on the way to the hospital. You drive and I talk. Croft held her gaze. Then he said, 42 pages minimum. 93, she said. I have been building it for 6 months. He almost smiled. Not quite, but almost. Let's go. He looked at Marcus. Your sergeant's exam. Marcus blinked. What about it? The department is going to have an opening in its integrity division within the week. The position requires someone who has passed the sergeant's exam and demonstrated the ability to operate independently when institutional support fails. He said it the way he said everything, flat and factual and entirely without performance. I am not offering you a position. I am telling you the position will exist. He paused. The exam registration is open through Friday. He walked out. Marcus stood in the rail maintenance building with Sasha Oren beside him and Kodiak at his feet, and the sound of 14 people outside being given the first safe moment they had had in however long this had been happening to them. And he thought about an exam form, and a division that did not yet exist, and a career trajectory that had looked one specific way for 18 months, and had looked entirely different for the last 3 hours. He looked at Kodiak. The dog looked back at him with those amber eyes that had been certain all night about things Marcus had needed time to arrive at. Good boy, Marcus said. Kodiak's tail moved. His eyes said what they had always said. You are here. You did the right thing. Stay. Marcus crouched and put both hands on the dog's face and held it for a moment, the way he did when he needed to feel the steadiness of the animal that had been steady all night, while Marcus was finding his way to it. Outside, the first light of morning was beginning at the eastern edge of the sky. The transport vehicles were stopped on 9 North. The 14 people were being helped by people who were supposed to help them. A 26-year operation, built on the assumption that everyone would stay inside the lines, had ended because a dog had gone off route and a 25-year-old officer had followed him. Marcus stood up. He had an exam form to register for by Friday. Marcus registered for the sergeant's exam on Thursday morning, 2 days after the rail maintenance building, sitting at his kitchen table with Kodiak at his feet and the exam registration form open on his laptop and a cup of coffee that had gone cold while he read the Integrity Division position description for the 4th time. The division did not yet officially exist. It existed in a memo that the department's acting chief had circulated 48 hours after Aldrin's arrest. A memo that used phrases like institutional accountability and independent oversight capacity and restoration of public trust in the careful language of an administration trying to respond to a crisis without admitting the depth of it. The memo did not mention Aldrin by name. It did not need to. Everyone in the building knew what the memo was about. Everyone in the building had been reading it, with the specific attention of people trying to determine which side of a dividing line they were on. Marcus submitted the registration and closed the laptop. Kodiak looked up at him. His amber eyes had the patient quality they always had, the quality of an animal that understood timing in a way that had nothing to do with clocks and everything to do with the specific readiness of the person beside him. I know, Marcus said. Me too. Croft called at 9 a.m. The debrief had run 91 pages and had been delivered in a vehicle moving at 60 miles per hour between the rail maintenance building
and Callaway General Hospital, with Regan talking and Croft driving and a recorder running and a federal prosecutor on speakerphone asking clarifying questions. By the time they reached the emergency entrance, 4 of the 9 facilities in the network's eastern corridor had been identified for simultaneous federal action. The warrants cleared by 6 a.m. All 4 facilities were secured before noon. "The other 5 facilities are in different corridors," Croft said. "Her debrief gives us enough to build the cases. It is going to take time, but it is going to work." He paused. "She asked about you." Marcus did not say anything. "She asked if the footage had been secured. I told her it had been. She said good. Then she asked if you were okay." Another pause. "I told her you registered for the sergeant's exam. She said that sounded right." Marcus looked at Kodiak. The dog's tail moved once. "How is she?" Marcus said. "Surgery went 4 hours. The wound was deeper than the field assessment showed. There was involvement at the muscle layer that the pressure bandage had been compensating for." Croft's voice was the flat, controlled voice he used when information was costing him something, and he had decided not to let it show. "She is out of surgery, and she is going to have full function. The recovery is going to be 8 weeks, and she is going to hate every day of it." "Yes," Marcus said, "she is." The legal proceedings moved with the specific momentum of a case that had been built over 6 months by a trained intelligence analyst and 4 months by a narcotics detective who had kept coming back after being told twice to stop. Aldrin's attorney spent the first 2 weeks trying to construct a defense around the welfare flag and the narrative of an unstable young officer acting outside his authority in a way that happened to produce good outcomes. The body cam footage ended that argument. Not complicated, not contested. 91 minutes of continuous documentation from the moment Marcus entered the first warehouse to the moment Croft walked through the north entrance of the rail maintenance building. Every conversation, every decision, every piece of evidence of a deputy chief managing institutional response in service of a criminal network. The welfare flag, time-stamped before Aldrin's own response team reached the warehouse, was the piece that the federal prosecutor called elegant, in a way that meant devastating. Aldrin had filed it preemptively, which demonstrated that the flag was not a response to Marcus's behavior, but a preparation for his own. The specific move of a man who had been building institutional cover stories for 26 years, and had done it one more time, without considering that the person he was covering against had already transmitted the evidence. Aldrin took a plea agreement in the 3rd week. His attorney advised it. The financial records Sasha Oren had built over 4 months, and the 91 pages of Regan's debrief and the body cam footage made a trial and exercise in confirming what the evidence had already proven. And Aldrin had 26 years of institutional experience and understood exactly what that meant for sentencing. He cooperated. He named names. He provided the connection to Gerald Fitch that Sasha's property records had already established, and added 3 other structural contacts that Regan's debrief had not been able to identify by name. Fitch's firm was dissolved by the state bar within 60 days. The facility's approval board member resigned before the federal investigation formally reached him, and that resignation was treated as the confirmation it was. The network's eastern corridor, 9 facilities, 6 years of operation, 23 victims recovered across the multi-state operation that Regan's debrief made possible, was finished. The major twist came 6 weeks after the rail maintenance building, on the day Marcus received his sergeant's exam results. He passed. He did not just pass. He posted the highest score in the department's testing cycle, which put his name at the top of a promotion list in an administration that was actively trying to demonstrate that it was capable of identifying the right people and placing them in positions of accountability. The Integrity Division formalized the same week. He was offered the lead position before he finished reading the exam results. He called Croft.
"I know," Croft said. "I heard an hour ago. Is it the right move? You turned off your radio and trusted your dog, and got 14 people out of a building and brought down a 6-year operation." Croft's voice was dry and certain in equal measure. "You tell me if it is the right move." Marcus looked at Kodiak. The dog was lying on the floor with his chin on his paws and his amber eyes half closed, but his ears fully forward, monitoring the apartment with the patient watchfulness he brought to every space he occupied. He was not asleep. He was never fully asleep when Marcus was in the room. He was resting in the way of an animal that has learned that readiness and rest could exist at the same time, and had no intention of giving up either. "Kodiak stays with me," Marcus said. "Whatever the division looks like, whatever the posting requires, the dog is part of the position." "I already included that in the division's operational parameters," Croft said. "Canine integration, active duty, full status." A pause. "Regan's idea, actually." Marcus was quiet for a moment.
"She is doing her physical therapy," Croft said. "She hates it the way I told you she would, but she is doing it." Another pause. "She is also rewriting her 6-month debrief into a training protocol for joint operations between NCIS and local law enforcement. She asked if she could include the body cam footage as a case study." He stopped. "She is not asking your permission. She is telling you as a professional courtesy." "Tell her yes." "She will be pleased. She will not say so." Croft's voice carried something underneath the flat, professional delivery. "She also said to tell you that the boy, the 7-year-old from the holding room, his family has him back. His mother called the victim support line last week and asked who the dog was.
She wanted her son to be able to write a thank you letter to the specific dog that came into the holding room and lowered his head and waited." Marcus sat very still for a moment. "What did the support line tell her?" "Kodiak, Officer Marcus Webb, Callaway PD." A pause. "The letter arrived at the department yesterday. It is in your box. I am told it includes a drawing." Marcus looked at Kodiak. The dog looked back. He accepted the sergeant's position on a Friday. He was 25 years old and had been on the force for 18 months, and had just been handed the lead of a division that did not have a playbook because it had not existed until a week ago, and was being built from the foundation of a case that had demonstrated exactly why it was necessary. He sat in the acting chief's office and signed the acceptance form, and Kodiak sat at his left heel, in the full composed dignity of a dog who had been in this building many times and understood that today was different from those other times. The acting chief looked at the dog. "He stays with you in the division." "Yes, sir." "The department is going to want to do a commendation ceremony for both of you." Marcus thought about how Kodiak would respond to a ceremony. He thought about the certificate being read aloud, and the specific expression of a dog who understood that something was being directed at him, but had no framework for why standing still and receiving attention constituted a meaningful activity. "He will accept the commendation," Marcus said, "and then he will want a treat." The acting chief looked at him for a moment. Then he laughed. It was the first genuine laugh Marcus had heard in that office. "Fair enough." Sasha Oren came to find Marcus after the signing. She was being transferred to the newly constituted Joint Investigations Unit, a unit that had come into existence as a direct consequence of the case, and that would review the 4 previous investigations Aldrin had buried with the full cooperation of the Federal Prosecutor's Office. She was leading it. She had been fighting for 4 months for the chance to lead something like it, and had arrived at the position not through politics or seniority, but through 4 months of property records, and a willingness to keep coming back after being told twice to stop. She found Marcus in the corridor and said,
The two of us are going to be in rooms together fairly often. I know. I need to know if you are the kind of person who can hear inconvenient evidence and keep going. Marcus looked at her. You know the answer to that. I know what you did one night, she said. I need to know if it was character or adrenaline. It was a fair question. It was the question of someone who had been in this work long enough to know the difference between people who rose to a specific moment and people who brought that quality to every moment. He said, "Ask me again in 6 months." She considered that. Acceptable. She held out her hand. He shook it. Your dog is the reason any of this happened. My dog went off route, Marcus said. Everything else followed. That is what I mean. She walked away. Marcus went to his car. Kodiak jumped into the back and settled immediately, facing forward, amber eyes watching through the windshield, the way he watched everything. Marcus sat in the driver's seat and did not start the engine for a moment. He thought about a route he had not requested on a night that had been arranged by someone who thought he was a manageable variable. He thought about a dog pulling east 4 blocks off a patrol route for reasons that had nothing to do with instruction and everything to do with what a trained animal could detect that a human could not. He thought about a woman hanging from a beam in a building that was supposed to be empty, who had opened her eyes and looked at him with the assessment of someone who had not stopped working, and had asked him, before she asked anything else, who had put him on this route tonight? He thought about turning off the radio. He had been on the force for 18 months, and in that time he had tried to be exactly what the institution required: reliable and procedural, and respectful of the chain of command. Not because he was incapable of independent judgment, but because he had believed that the institution's procedures were the reliable path to the right outcomes. One night had shown him that the institution's procedures could be turned by someone who understood them well enough, that the chain of command was only as good as the people in it, and that sometimes the most important thing you could do was turn off the radio and follow your dog into a building that was supposed to be empty. He was going to build a division on that understanding. He was going to build it with Sasha Oren's 4 months of property records and Regan Cole's 91 pages of debrief and the body cam footage that a training officer he had never properly thanked had told him to set up on his first week when she said, "Paper does not ping." He was going to build it for the 14 people who had needed someone to go east on a route that had no reason to go east. He started the car. Kodiak's ears moved forward. They drove the eastern perimeter route, the same route, the one that passed the warehouse on Crane, and the decommissioned rail yard, and the facilities that were no longer holding what they had been built to hold. The sun was up, and the buildings were quiet, and nothing looked dangerous from the outside. And Marcus had learned something fundamental about what that meant. He drove 4 blocks east of the route, just to see. Kodiak's head came up. His nose found the window. His amber eyes moved across the eastern perimeter with the steady attention of an animal that had never once stopped paying attention to the things that mattered. Marcus watched the dog and thought about a letter in his department box with a drawing inside it. A 7-year-old boy's rendering of the dog that had come into a dark room and lowered his head and waited. The dog that had asked for nothing and offered everything. The dog that had tracked a scent 4 blocks off a patrol route in the middle of the night, because that was where the thing that needed finding was. Everything that came after began with that. Everything that comes after always begins with that, with the one person who was paying attention when everyone else was looking somewhere else, with the one act that required nothing except the willingness to follow what you found toward where it led. With the dog who went off route and the officer who followed him, and the choice that changed 14 lives and ended a 6-year operation, and built a division out of the understanding that the most important moment in any investigation was the one where someone decided not to look away. Kodiak turned from the window and looked at Marcus. His tail swept the back seat once, steady and certain, the way it swept when he had assessed the situation and found it correct, and was communicating that assessment in the only language he had, which had always been more than enough. Marcus drove east. Kodiak watched the road. Together, they kept going. Amen.